Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Here's a question for you. If something's meta, can it be improved? Keep watching to find out. So the answer to the question is a resounding yes. The meta is the meta, but we can expand it to incorporate further subclass verbs. Which then leads us on to the next question. Just how many verbs can we incorporate into one build and actually have them all synergize together? Well, we're going to have the answer to that question by the end of this video. Let's jump right into the meta build that we're talking about, and it's based on the Strand Hunter. For our abilities, we're going to take a Gambler's Dodge and we're going to take a Shackle Grenade. Aspects will be the Whirling Maelstrom, where if we destroy a tangle, we will create the little helicopter whirlwind unravelling nutcase thing. And we're going to take Threaded Spectre, where if we dodge, we're going to leave behind a Strand decoy that explodes into threadlings. For our fragments, we're going to take Thread of Generation, where dealing damage generates grenade energy. Thread of Rebirth, where Strand weapon final blows have a chance to create additional threadlings. Thread of Warding, that will grant us Woven Mail whenever we pick up an Orb of Power. And Thread of Evolution, where threadlings will travel further and deal additional damage. For our exotic armour, we're going to take the 6th Coyote chest piece, which allows us to gain a second dodge charge. What this means is that we can have 2 Threaded Spectres on the battlefield without any effort. Now, you may think the Radiant Dance machines, which allow us to dodge multiple times, may be a better fit here, but for some bizarre reason, Threaded Spectres only appear on the first dodge with Radiant Dance machines, rendering them completely useless. When selecting your armour, you want to prioritise Resilience, surprise surprise, and Mobility. The reason for the mobility is on a hunter, this regulates our class ability cooldown, and we want to be dodging as much as possible. There's no real third priority, though discipline is always nice to have. Intellect, again, is a nice to have. Strength is completely irrelevant as we have the Gambler's Dodge to refund our charge melee. And recovery, again, nice to have, not essential. Looking to our seasonal artifacts. Champion mods are very much dealer's choice, but with the weaponry we're likely to be using, I would recommend Piercing Sidearms, Unstoppable Hand Cannon, and Overload Auto Rifle. For our artifact perks proper, we want Flint Striker, where Rapid Solar Weapon precision hits and Rapid Solar final blows will grant us Radiant. Unravelling Orbs, where picking up an Orb of Power will grant Strand weapons Unravelling Round. Horde Shuttle, where we damage unravelled targets with a weapon and it will spawn a threadling. Kindling Trigger, so Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorched to unscorched combatants. As mentioned in previous videos, Kindling Trigger and Flint Striker create a fantastic loop within themselves. Torch, so while Radiant we deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs. We want Rays of Precision, so while Radiant, solar precision final blows cause combatants to ignite. Wished into Being, where our super is nearly charged, we'll get additional orbs from ability kills. And we want Dragon's Bite, where breaking a combatant's shield with a Strand or Stasis weapon has a chance to suspend or freeze that combatant. The final perk is completely up to you, but I tend to go with From Whence You Came, or, depending on the weapons I'm using, Origin Perk Specialisation 1. Moving on to our mods, we're going to begin with the helmet and take Double Harmonic Siphon, which means rapid Strand weapon kills will create improved Orbs of Power. We're also going to take a Heavy Ammo Finder, as who doesn't like a bit of heavy now and then. On the arms, we're going to take Focusing Strike, which grants class ability whenever we cause damage with a powered melee. And don't forget that using our class ability fully refunds our powered melee thanks to Gambler's Dodge. We're going to take impact induction, where causing damage with a powered melee reduces our grenade cooldown. And because we're going to have it on tap, we'll take heavy-handed, so our powered melee also creates orbs of power. On our chest, it's completely dealer's choice, however I would recommend putting on a charged up, which increases the maximum number of armour charge stacks we can carry by 1, i.e. we're going from 3 to 4. Other than that, it's entirely up to you to use whichever damage resistance mods are applicable to the activity you're going to be playing. On our legs, we're going to apply a insulation, which reduces class ability cooldown each time we pick up an orb of power. Recuperation, so we recover a chunk of health each time we pick up an orb of power. And stacks on stacks, where picking up an orb of power grants us an additional armour charge, i.e. each orb is now worth 2. On our class item, we're going to begin with a utility kickstart. So when our class ability is fully expended, our armour charge is consumed and we gain class ability energy for each armour charge used. Now with 4, this is approximately a third that we will get back. On top of that, we're going to take a Reaper mod, so shortly after using our class ability, it's actually 10 seconds, if we get a kill, we will get an orb of power. And finally, because we've got a space left, we'll take a bomber to reduce our grenade cooldown whenever we use our class ability. And finally, we're going to look at our weapons. Now, in the kinetic slot, most people are going to recommend Final Warning, and it's a very solid choice here. Sidearm with the anti-barrier mod, it's very powerful, and on its own, it's a bit of a beast. But a lot of people don't like the way it actually feels when you're using it due to having to hold and release the fire button. But if you don't want to use Final Warning, there are lots of other Strand primary weapons that can be used in its place. Michael's Revenance is a solid option, Rufus Fury, or if you don't have any of the raid weapons, things like Lethal Abundance, Round Robin, the Immortal, etc. Now it's the next 2 weapons that take this from meta to better. So for our NG weapon, we either want something that is solar with incandescent or void with repulsor brace and destabilising rounds. And then for our heavy, we want either void or solar, and again with either incandescent or repulsor and destabilising. So if we're going for a solar energy, we want a void heavy. If we're taking a void energy, we want the solar heavy. Some examples in the energy, we can have Amit AR4, Zalu's Bane, Word of Crota, Age-Old Bond. The list is pretty long, some of which are craftable, some of which are raid weapons. However, if you don't have these crafted, or you don't raid, a solid alternative is the Apocal Integration Solar Hand Cannon that came from the story missions. Looking to heavy, with regards to void, there are only 5 weapons that can roll with repulsor and destabilising, one of which is the craftable Regnant Grenade Launcher. However, if you don't have this season's playlist or ritual activity weapon, the Chivalric Fire Sword, does come with repulsor and destabilising on it as standard. Or if we're using a void energy weapon, so we need a solar heavy, there are more heavy weapons with incandescent than I can possibly list. So, right back at the beginning of the video I asked, how many subclass verbs is it possible to integrate and synergise into a build? Now, if you've been paying attention, you should have already worked this out, but for those that haven't been counting, let's have a look. So there we have it. The final answer is 11. 3 solar verbs, 2 void verbs and 6 strand verbs. So we are the master of the meta. So our standard gameplay loop for this build is to throw our threaded spike to sever enemies, dodge in the vicinity of them to draw their attention, pick up any orbs or tangles, throw tangles. This gives us unravelling rounds and our whirling maelstrom, and go to town. Anytime that you start getting hit, dodge again, which will just drop our threaded spectre again, causing all our enemies to focus on them. Speaking of which, look at the effect on this mini-boss. I'm quite literally stood 2 feet away from him and he has no idea I'm there, allowing me to get myself radiant. To access the other subclass verbs, simply switch to the appropriate weapon and have fun. As you can see here, quickly applying an overshield and volatile, I have unravelling in a second, and it just goes nuts. So there we have it. With a little bit of proper weapon selection, we've gone and made the meta better. If you've enjoyed this video and you're interested in more Destiny 2 builds, please drop a like and maybe even a subscribe. You'll be doing me a huge favour. But until next time, have a fantastic day.